We choose beauty. We refuse to settle for the mediocre. Because beauty is not going to save the world at some vague point in the future. Beauty is already saving the world, here and now, and it is up to you as well to play your part. One of the most visible symptoms of the sickness afflicting the West, the very sickness I write about in my book, is this peculiar attraction to ugliness. Look around you. Look at what our architecture produces, what our music produces, what our visual arts produce. You will find, almost without exception, works whose ambition is not to be beautiful. And what is not beautiful is, by definition, its opposite. The avant-gardes, in particular, though the process was long and complex, deliberately expelled beauty from the aims and tools of art. Beauty, which Thomas Mann described as the sensory bridge between the human and the divine. Thomas Mann, and every serious thinker who has written about art from the Renaissance onwards, and if we extend to poetry, from Plato onwards, all of them understood something that we have largely forgotten. Throughout human history, there has been a remarkably clear idea that poetry is a bridge between the human and the divine, that it is the divine word made flesh. From the Renaissance onwards, that same idea, that same extraordinary responsibility was extended to the visual arts as well, to unite reason with mystery, the human with the divine. But from the age of revolutions onwards, and then openly and aggressively with the avant-gardes, all of this was swept away. We now find ourselves in what I can only describe as a cemetery of beauty. The tired example of the banana taped to a wall. Artists who call themselves artists because they self-flagellate or perform acts of self-harm and present these as meaningful artistic gestures. This is the era we inhabit, and we do not even notice what we have lost. We have lost the most important thing. We have lost beauty. I believe this is the true turning point, the hinge on which the West can rediscover itself. Consider a civilization like Rome, afflicted by perpetual warfare, by slavery, by injustice of every kind. We should not forget that Rome was born from rape, from mass violence, from fratricide. The Mos Maiorum was not quite as clean as some authors have painted it. And yet, despite being so deeply marked by the evil that runs through the world, that civilization created the conditions in which people, at least those with means, lived surrounded by extraordinary beauty. The context was still profoundly natural. People lived in genuine contact with nature, something we have almost entirely lost today. But even when they moved into the city and left that natural world behind, they found themselves in houses decorated with a beauty that leaves you speechless. Go to Herculaneum. Look at those walls. People grew up and lived their entire lives with beauty as their compass, with that finger pointing always toward the infinite. And so, of course, no one seriously questioned whether life had meaning. The meaning was there, and beauty was showing it to them. Today, we live in an era where all of this has not merely been questioned, but declared a heresy. To believe today that art should use beauty to lead us toward the divine is to be excluded from every contemporary art circuit, because contemporary art is the precise negation of that idea. It is the incarnation of a fundamentally nihilistic worldview, a worldview convinced that nothing exists, and that therefore nothing is worth investigating. Art becomes a circling around emptiness, around a void, with no obligation to place meaning in anything it does. This is the final stage we have reached. And already, since the time of Andy Warhol, various thinkers, Arthur Dante among them, have spoken of post-art, of art having simply ended, because art lost its purpose. It lost its identity. And when it collided fatally with the logic of the market, art became nothing more than what sells. The greatest emergency we face today is therefore this: to open our eyes and recognize that what the West is missing above all else is beauty. The return to beauty is not nostalgia. It is the true evolution available to each one of us, the path toward the future that awaits us. This means, of course, cultivating an awareness of the daily choices we make. When we turn on the radio, in the vast majority of cases, we are subjected to music that uses vibration, that uses sound waves, an enormous power to enter the body without any mediation whatsoever. And these waves have for decades been profoundly negative. Contemporary music, even without its lyrics, tends to pull us toward depression, toward that part of ourselves that inclines to sadness and darkness. Listen to Mozart. I mention him because everyone knows him, but the same applies to virtually any composer who wrote before the 19th century. You will not find that darkness there. What you will find instead is these notes, one after another, building a bridge that carries you toward the mystery that cannot be named. That is what music is. We have the extraordinary possibilities of technology available to us. We can choose to spend our days being depressed by commercial music that tells us only that nothing exists, nothing matters, nothing is worth anything. Or we can draw from the past, because memory is our salvation. From that past, from that memory, we can make something new germinate. And I have not even mentioned the texts. If you occasionally analyze, as I do, the lyrics used in contemporary music, you begin to wonder whether there is not some visible or invisible hand directing all of these texts toward a single idea: sadness, depression, meaninglessness. It cannot be a mere coincidence. The phenomenon is so consistent, and it excludes so thoroughly any song that points in the opposite direction, save for the rarest of niches where a few exceptions are tolerated, that the songs which achieve success form what looks like the tiles of a single mosaic, a mosaic narrating total nihilism, total despair, total absence of meaning. And so inevitably the younger generations grow up this way. They are too young to have developed the critical tools needed to process all of this. They find themselves without any genuine sense of purpose. The same applies to the entire literary universe. And by literature, I do not mean only books. I mean all forms of narrative. Think about the atmosphere created by the films of the 1950s and 60s. Then think about the atmosphere of the series you watch on streaming platforms today. I watched the 3 Sissy films recently. They were enormously successful. They told a grand love story, a fairy tale world, not entirely faithful to history, but they gave an entire generation its legends, its archetypes. Today, the models are Lucifer, vampires, creatures rising from the abyss, Squid Game, people killing one another. Now, I am not saying these narratives should not exist. Dante narrated hell, and he narrated it magnificently. But his hell had meaning because there was a paradise. Because in Dante's initiatory journey, there is evil, and then there is good. The narratives of today are without resolution. There is no paradise. There is not even purgatory. We must return to using beauty as our compass, to filter what we watch, what we listen to, what we give our attention to. If we let ourselves be carried by the wave and fall into watching whatever series is popular simply because it is popular, driven by that basic psychological conformism that makes us interested in whatever a million other people are watching, we are not moving in a good direction. Anyone who truly wants to be happy must have the courage of nonconformity. We must swim against the current, like salmon heading for the source. This applies to music. It applies to narrative, and it applies to the visual arts. We have grown accustomed, we have normalized the idea that art should be ugly, that Italian art should copy the worst of American art, and do so even more poorly, that artists are nothing more than interpreters of this void, or performers of rebellion, political militancy, social critique. No, that is not what an artist is called to do. These are secondary concerns. An artist is called to embody beauty. An artist is called to build, through his works, a road that carries those who encounter them toward the mystery. And we must use the force of our own awareness to redirect the market, in music in narrative, in art, toward other paths. We must buy beautiful works. We must watch beautiful films. We must listen to beautiful music. And we must deepen our understanding of that word, beautiful. What is beauty? We must learn to distinguish the beautiful from the ugly. If we treat beauty as purely subjective, this is beautiful to me, and fail to understand that beauty is in fact the most objective thing that exists, because it is that point where the sensory and the supersensory meet, where the human meets the divine, where reason meets mystery. If we fail to understand this, then we must educate ourselves. We must invest in our own formation. We must learn to see. This, I believe, is the true great challenge facing the West today. There are many other important battles to fight, certainly, but if we do not begin here, we will not succeed in giving meaning back to our civilization. And so little is required. An Afternoon with Mozart, an old film that shows us how beautiful the human soul can be. A visit to an exhibition of art made before Romanticism began to cloud things, before that Baudelairean moment when art started to believe that ugliness might also be its business. If we devote our time and our energy to discovering that it is possible to use art, music, and literature in the service of beauty, and we discover that it is possible because it has already been done, then perhaps we understand that there is an alternative. Perhaps there is an alternative to the gray concrete towers being built around us. Perhaps there is an alternative to the streets made ugly, the pavements cracked and overgrown. The alternative exists. The alternative is beauty, the sense of beauty, the capacity to spread that sense, which naturally becomes action. I thank you, as always, for listening. May your life be full of beauty. May today be full of beauty. May the whole of your life be full of beauty. And may God bless us all.